My name is Claire. At a family gathering, my mother called my gift cheap and praised my brother instead. I didn't argue. I handed her one more box. What was inside changed who paid, who decided, and who stopped being believed. If you've lived through something similar, share it in the comments. Margaret sat at the center of the room with a stack of wrapped boxes near her feet, moving through them the way she always did, fast, practiced, already half bored. Someone passed her mine last. The paper was plain, no ribbon. That alone earned a look. She tore it open, glanced once, then set it on the table as if it had arrived by mistake. "Cheap," she said. Then, without pausing, she added, "Why don't you learn from your brother and give something that actually matters?" Brian laughed under his breath. Margaret reached for his gift next, a heavier box, shiny paper, a brand name everyone recognized. She smiled this time. "See," she said, lifting it slightly, "this is thoughtful." A cousin nodded. Someone said Brian always knew what to get. Another voice mentioned how lucky Margaret was to have a son like that. No one looked in my direction. A fork scraped against a plate. A chair shifted. The conversation drifted forward as if nothing had happened. Margaret started peeling tape off Brian's box, already done with mine. I stood up. The movement drew a few glances. Not concern, more irritation, like I was interrupting the schedule. I walked toward the hallway and returned with a second box, smaller, no wrapping at all, just cardboard, clean edges. Margaret noticed it immediately. "What's that?" she asked, tone clipped. "Another one," I said, and placed it in front of her. She sighed. "You didn't have to." Still, the box was pulled closer. Appearances mattered. Guests were watching. Fingers worked at the lid with less enthusiasm than before. The top came off. Paperwork filled the box. No color, no instructions, just forms, neatly stacked. Margaret frowned, then lifted the first page. Her name sat at the top. She flipped to the next, then another. Brian leaned forward. "What is this?" Margaret didn't answer. She scanned lines, paused, went back, then checked the bottom of the page. A crease formed between her eyebrows. An ant cleared her throat. Someone else reached for a drink. The room slowed in a way people never planned for. "These are accounts?" Brian said. Margaret turned a page again, as if it might change if she tried. The numbers stayed where they were. Dates lined up in columns. Monthly entries. Years' worth. "Why would you give me this?" she asked finally. "It's yours," I said. She looked up, waiting for more. Nothing came. A cousin asked whether it was some kind of investment thing. Someone joked that paperwork was an odd gift choice. No one laughed. Margaret kept reading. Her hand trembled just enough to notice. The box sat open, plain and unapologetic, taking up space on the table where the shiny wrapping had been moments earlier. Brian shifted back in his chair. "This doesn't make sense," he said. Margaret didn't respond. She stared at the pages like they might accuse her out loud if she blinked. The room stayed still, plates untouched. Brian's expensive gift forgotten on her lap, unopened, sliding slowly to the floor. Margaret's eyes didn't follow it. Chairs slid back, one by one. Plates were stacked without ceremony. Someone wrapped leftovers with more care than the conversation deserved. Margaret stayed seated, papers still spread in front of her, as if the table had decided their positions. A cousin leaned toward me near the doorway. "So," she said, trying to sound light, "that was different." Another voice added, "Guess cheap comes in folders now." The laugh landed nowhere. I picked up my coat. Brian hovered near the counter, phone in hand, tapping the screen without looking at it. He kept glancing toward Margaret, then away. His gift lay unopened on the floor where it had slipped earlier. No one rushed to retrieve it. Margaret didn't stop me as I headed out. She didn't say goodbye either. The papers made a soft shuffle when she gathered them, a sound that followed me down the hall. The parking lot held clusters of relatives talking in pairs, the way people do when they want witnesses but not responsibility. A few heads turned. Someone lifted a hand in a half wave. Another person called my name, then changed their mind. Brian caught up near the car. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "To give a second box?" I asked. He frowned. "You know what I mean." A car alarm chirped nearby. He checked his phone again. She didn't know, he added, as if that settled it. I unlocked the door. She opened it, I said, and got in. By the time the engine started, Brian had stepped back, already dialing someone else. The phone rang before I reached the end of the block. Margaret's name filled the screen. I let it ring twice. "Why would you embarrass me like that?" she said when I answered. No greeting, no question. I didn't say anything. "That's not the point," she replied. People were staring. "They were reading," I said. A pause followed. Breathing. Measured. "You could have talked to me first," she said. "Handled it privately." "You had the papers," I said. "That was private." Another pause. This one longer. "We'll talk later," she said, then hung up. Messages arrived before I pulled into my driveway. An aunt sent a thumbs-up emoji, then a second message asking what the account was for. A cousin wrote that Margaret had been so stressed lately, and maybe I should check on her. Someone else repeated the word cheap, adding a laughing face this time. No replies went out. The next day at work unfolded the way routines do. Forms passed, screens refreshed, numbers entered. Conversations moved around me without stopping. At lunch, a coworker mentioned family gatherings and shook her head. "Those things always come with footnotes," she said. Later, I crossed paths with Denise near the billing office. She balanced a stack of folders against her hip and nodded once. "Heard Cleveland weather keeps people indoors," she said, scanning a chart. "Sometimes," I said. She flipped a page. "Records don't," she said. "They travel well." A patient called her name. She handed the folders to someone else, then turned back. "Just so you know," Denise added, voice even, "the system remembers who pays. It doesn't do favors." "That's efficient," I said. She smiled briefly. "It's consistent." The afternoon brought more of the same. Numbers matched, dates aligned. A supervisor asked about coverage for a patient who had missed a payment. Someone joked that hospitals never forget a balance. Toward the end of the shift, my phone buzzed again. Margaret's number. I let it go. A text followed. "We need to talk. Call me when you can." Another message arrived a minute later. "This isn't what it looks like." No response went out. By the time I reached home, Brian had left a voicemail. His voice sounded careful. "She's upset," he said. "You know how she gets. People are calling her, asking questions." The message ended without asking me anything. Dinner came and went. Dishes went into the sink. The phone stayed face down. Later that evening, Margaret's name appeared once more. This time, she didn't call. A notification arrived from an unfamiliar address. The subject line read, "Account Summary, Recent Review." I didn't open it. Across town, an envelope slid through Margaret's mail slot. The return address carried the hospital's logo. Administrative language filled the page. Dates, totals, a familiar name listed under payment history, repeated month after month, steady as a heartbeat. Margaret unfolded the letter at the table, the same one where the boxes had been opened. Her phone sat beside it, screen dark, waiting. The clerk at the hospital wore a badge with a first name and no last. She scanned the screen, clicked twice, then tilted her head. "You're listed as the primary payer," she said. The sentence landed without emphasis, like weather. "Since when?" Margaret asked from the chair beside me. Her purse sat open, one hand gripping the strap. The clerk scrolled again. "Since the first admission," she said. 3 years ago." Margaret leaned forward. "That can't be right. My son—" The clerk stopped scrolling. "Your son is listed as emergency contact," she said. "Financial responsibility is different." A printer hummed behind the desk. The sound filled the pause. Margaret laughed once. "There must be a mistake. She just helped a little, temporarily." The clerk nodded, already turning the monitor. "I can print the ledger," she said. "It shows monthly deposits, same amount, same account." She reached for a button. "That won't be necessary," Margaret said. "It's already queued," the clerk replied, not unkindly. The paper slid out in neat pages. Dates marched down the columns. Margaret stared at them as if they'd rearranged themselves out of politeness. In the hallway, she spoke without lowering her voice. "You never told me it looked like this." "It looked the same," I said. She stopped walking. You let people think I didn't tell anyone anything. Her phone buzzed. She checked it, then slipped it back into the purse. This is being blown out of proportion, she said. Families help each other. On paper, I said, this is one name. She turned away and headed for the exit. The automatic doors parted on schedule. The credit union smelled faintly of copier toner. A young man with a tie too tight asked for identification, then smiled when the system recognized the account. You'd like full statements, he asked? Yes. All years? Yes. He nodded, impressed or bored. Do you want digital copies too? That would be fine. He typed quickly. These go back to when you opened the account, he said. Consistent deposits, very clean. Margaret stood a step behind, arms crossed. This was never meant to be permanent, she said to him, then to me. It was supposed to stop once things stabilized. The young man looked up. Stability is subjective, he said. Balances are not. He slid the papers across the counter. A place for signatures appeared, circled. And this form, he added, confirms ongoing responsibility. Optional, of course. Margaret's voice sharpened. We don't need that. I picked up the pen. The stroke of ink looked ordinary. The effect wasn't. Margaret shook her head. You're making this official. It already is, I said. Outside, she took a call before reaching the car. I know, she said. No, it's not what it sounds like. She just helped for a bit. Her gaze stayed fixed on the pavement. At the fast food place down the road, I waited for copies to finish uploading. A tray clattered somewhere. A child spilled a drink and was handed napkins with an apology practiced enough to sound cheerful. Brian texted, Why are you doing this? I typed back, nothing. Another message followed. Mom says you're trying to take control. The word control sat on the screen like a diagnosis. A number I didn't recognize called. I let it ring. A voicemail arrived seconds later. An aunt's voice, careful. Your mother is upset, she said. People are asking questions. Maybe you could smooth this over. The system pinged. Documents ready. At home, the printer warmed up. Pages stacked neatly. Each one told the same story with small variations. Margaret's name appeared at the top. Mine appeared at the bottom, over and over. She called again. This is embarrassing, she said when I answered. You're making it seem like I couldn't manage. The statements manage themselves, I said. A breath. Your brother is hurt. He hasn't called. He doesn't know what to say. Neither did I said. She changed tactics. I was protecting you. People talk. They still do. Silence followed, then a softer tone. You could have trusted me. I folded a page. I did, I said, with the bills. The call ended without goodbye. That evening, I placed a copy of the statements in an envelope. No note, no explanation. Just paper, clipped, squared. At the post office, the clerk weighed it. Documents, she asked? Yes. Certified? Yes. She stamped the receipt and slid it back. Tracking numbers on there, she said. You'll know when it arrives. The envelope disappeared into a bin. Later, Brian left another voicemail. His voice sounded rehearsed. She says this doesn't have to go further, he said. We can fix it. Fix meant erase. At the kitchen table, I lined the remaining copies into a folder. The label read, Financial Records, a phrase neutral enough to pass for polite. My phone lit up with a delivery notification. The envelope had reached its destination. Across town, Margaret opened her mail. Paper met paper. No handwriting greeted her, just dates, amounts, and a name that refused to move. She didn't call again that night. The voicemail from the hospital arrived before noon. Ms. Morgan, a woman said, voice measured, this is regarding a routine review of financial responsibility and decision authority. Please return our call. Routine did a lot of work in that sentence. The return call led to a scheduled conference. A time was set. A list of participants followed. No names carried tone. Titles did. Margaret answered from her kitchen. I recognized the clink of her spoon against a mug. This is unnecessary, she said, before anyone finished introductions. I've handled my own care for years. A man from administration cleared his throat. "Our records indicate shared involvement," he said. "We're required to confirm accuracy." "That's paperwork," Margaret said. "Families help. It doesn't change who decides." Another voice joined. "Financial responsibility and medical decision authority are separate categories." Margaret laughed, short and sharp. "Since when?" "Since always," the man said, without emphasis. The line went still for a beat. "We'll need to update authorizations," a woman added. "Given the payment history, we're obligated to ensure consent aligns with contribution." Margaret's chair scraped, so she went behind my back. "No one mentioned timing," the woman said. "Only records." Brian had joined the call late. His greeting came clipped. "This could have been handled at home," he said. "That suggestion was considered," the man replied. "Hospitals don't resolve governance privately." Margaret spoke over him. "She wants control," she said. "That's what this is." A pause followed, long enough for a keyboard to click. "The term is responsibility," the woman said. "Control isn't a category we use." I didn't say anything. The agenda moved without me. "We're proposing a limited adjustment," the man continued. "Shared financial authority, medical decisions to be reviewed under existing consent forms." Margaret exhaled hard. "You're taking my rights." "We're aligning them," he said, "temporarily." "Until when?" "Until the accounts change." The answer arrived clean. Margaret's phone buzzed. She muted the call long enough to take it, then returned. "My sister says this is humiliating," she said. "People are asking questions." "Questions follow discrepancies," the woman said. "That's standard." Brian cut in. "She didn't ask for this." The man replied, "Neither did the ledger." Margaret stood. "I won't sign anything," she said. Silence followed, not confrontational, just procedural. "We can document refusal," the woman said. "That limits access in certain circumstances." "Such as?" Margaret asked. "Emergency approval," she said. "Billing disputes. Non-urgent changes." Margaret's voice rose. "This is punishment." "No," the man said. "It's compliance." The call ended with next steps. Emails promised attachments, timelines outlined. At my desk later, a message from an aunt appeared. "Why are you dragging outsiders into this?" Another followed. "Your mother is devastated." A third suggested dinner to clear the air. No responses went out. That evening, Margaret called again. This time, she didn't wait for me to answer before speaking. "You blindsided me." "The hospital called," I said. "You pushed them." "They reviewed." Her breath sounded uneven. "You always do this," she said. "You make things official." "Bills are official," I said. She switched tactics. "Do you know how this looks? On paper? To people." "People aren't listed," I said. A pause, then anger. "You're treating me like I'm incapable." "The forms don't say that." "They imply it." "They show dates." Her voice dropped. "Your brother feels erased." "He wasn't paying." "That doesn't mean, it means the records won't lie for him." She hung up. The following day, an email arrived from administration. Subject line, "Authorization update. Action required." Margaret forwarded it to me with a note. "This is on you." At her house, she opened the documents on a tablet. Pages scrolled. Checkboxes appeared. Signature fields waited patiently. Brian stood nearby, arms folded. "You don't have to do this," he said. "They're forcing me," she replied. "No one is forcing," he said, quieter. "They're just asking." She clicked the first page. "Read it," she said. He did. "This limits you." "It limits access," she snapped. "To what?" "To pretending," he didn't say. She tapped the signature line, then stopped. "This won't stay like this," she said. The pen hovered. Her name appeared, uneven at first, then steadied. A confirmation screen replaced the form. "Thank you," the message read. "Your updates have been received." The wording carried no sympathy. Work didn't pause just because my name had started circulating in other people's sentences. Emails kept arriving. Forms still needed signatures. A calendar reminder blinked for a meeting that had nothing to do with my family. I finished it, closed the file, and walked down the hall without checking my phone. At the hospital, Margaret sat in a wheelchair near the corridor, wrapped in a cardigan she used when she wanted to look smaller. Brian stood behind her, hands on the handles, scanning faces as they passed. A nurse spoke to a colleague about insurance codes, voice flat, moving on. Margaret spotted me and raised her hand. "There she is," she said, loud enough to turn heads. Brian leaned closer to her. "Lower your voice." "No," she said. "People should know." A woman from radiology called Margaret's name. The chair rolled forward, then stopped again. "She did this," Margaret said to no one in particular, "after everything." The nurse checked the chart. "Ms. Morgan, we're ready." Margaret's eyes filled. She wiped them with the back of her hand, then looked straight at me. "You turned my life into a file," she said. The nurse waited, polite, trained. Brian exhaled. "Can we not do this here?" Margaret shook her head. "This is what betrayal looks like." The chair moved again. The nurse guided it down the hall. The scene dissolved as quickly as it had formed, leaving a few glances behind. Later that afternoon, my phone buzzed with messages that carried the same tone in different words. "Your mother is devastated. This is tearing the family apart. You need to fix this." One cousin asked whether I planned to reverse the paperwork. Another suggested mediation. A third reminded me that Margaret was sick, as if illness rewrote records. No replies went out. The family meeting happened at a coffee shop near the hospital. No one wanted to host. The table held 4 people and one empty chair that seemed reserved for Margaret's absence. An aunt spoke first. "She's been crying all day." Brian nodded. "She feels attacked." "By documents?" I asked. "That's not fair," he said. "You made her look incompetent." "I didn't change anything." "You exposed it," he said. "There's a difference." Another aunt leaned forward. "You could pull back, just enough. Make it clear this was temporary." "It wasn't," I said. She sighed. "You always have to be right." I had to be consistent. Brian rubbed his face. "She says you went behind her back." "The hospital called," I said. "They review accounts." "You signed more forms," he said. "Yes." That escalated things. It clarified them. He shook his head. "You didn't think about how this would land." "I thought about where the bills went." A pause followed. Coffee cups cooled. One aunt tried again. "Can you at least say you're sorry?" "For paying?" "For the way you did it," she said. "I paid the same way every month." Brian pushed his chair back. "You embarrassed her. She called my gift cheap." "That was a joke." "No," I said. "It was a habit." Voices rose and fell. Nothing moved forward. When Margaret called that evening, she skipped the opening. "You let strangers decide things that belong to me." "The hospital decides," I said. "I pay." Her voice cracked on purpose. "I raised you." "You did. And this is how you repay me?" I covered the invoices. "That's not love," she said. "It kept the lights on." She cried then, full voice, unmuted. The sound filled the line. "I gave up everything," she said, "and you couldn't even talk to me." "I sent statements," I said. "That's not a conversation." "It's accurate." She stopped crying abruptly. "You think you're better than me." "I think records matter." Her tone hardened. "You've ruined my reputation." "Among whom?" "The family." "They've seen the numbers." She laughed once, sharp. "You've turned them against me." "They read." A breath. "This ends now." "With what?" I asked. "With a lawyer," she said. The word hung there, heavy and neat. "That's your choice," I said. She ended the call. Brian texted minutes later. "She's serious. She won't let this go." The next day, an email arrived from a law office with a polite subject line. "Consultation scheduled. Availability requested. At my desk, the cursor blinked in an empty reply. The office hummed with normal business. A coworker asked whether I wanted lunch. In a bit, I said. The message waited. In the hallway later, Denise passed by with a folder tucked under her arm. Things tend to escalate once attorneys get involved, she said, not stopping. So I've heard, I said. She nodded. Paper has momentum. The conference room held 4 chairs and a screen that stayed on too long between clicks. A recorder sat in the middle of the table, red light steady. Names were read aloud, spelled carefully, then confirmed. Titles followed. The process moved faster than feelings ever did. The attorney from the hospital opened a folder and slid copies across. These are the payment records, she said. Monthly deposits, consistent amounts, same originating account. Margaret leaned back, arms crossed. I've seen those, she said. They don't tell the whole story. The attorney nodded once and continued. Next are consent forms, she said. These show designated roles during admissions. She tapped the page. Caregiver listed as Brian Morgan. Brian shifted in his seat. That's what Mom asked for. The attorney turned the page. Financial responsibility listed as Claire Morgan. She didn't look up when she spoke. The words landed evenly, the way numbers do. Margaret scoffed. That's just how it was written, she said. He handled things. Handled, the attorney repeated and turned the screen. A timeline appeared. Dates aligned. Signatures sat beneath headings. Here, she said, pointing, care coordination signed by Brian. Payment authorization signed by Claire. Another click. And here, she said, multiple admissions, same pattern. The recorder hummed. Margaret leaned forward. You're implying I misrepresented something? We're documenting discrepancies, the attorney said. Implication isn't required. Brian spoke quickly. I was there, he said. I took her to appointments. Transportation is noted, the attorney said. Billing is separate. The word separate did not bend. Margaret raised her voice. This is ridiculous. Families don't run like corporations. Well, hospitals do, the attorney replied. A second administrator cleared his throat. Based on this review, he said, we're required to update official records. Update to what? Margaret asked. Caregiver designation will reflect financial authority, he said. Decision-making will require joint confirmation for non-emergency changes. Margaret laughed, short and sharp. You're sidelining me. We're aligning roles, he said, until records change. Brian looked at me, then away. This is going too far, he said. You're punishing her. No penalties are applied, the administrator said. Only limitations. Margaret stood. You can't do this without my consent. The attorney folded her hands. Consent was given with signatures, she said, multiple times. Margaret stared at the page as if it had spoken out of turn. That signature, she said, pointing, was for convenience. Convenience doesn't negate authorization, the attorney said. The recorder clicked softly as the timestamp rolled. The administrator continued. We'll issue updated access credentials, he said. Future changes will require verification from both parties. Margaret's face tightened. You're taking my authority. We're documenting it, he said. Brian pushed back his chair. This is humiliating, he said. She's sick. The attorney nodded. Medical status is noted, she said. Financial responsibility remains unchanged. The phrase remained unchanged sounded almost gentle. Margaret grabbed her purse. I won't be treated like a suspect. No one said suspect, the administrator said. Only source. The meeting adjourned with a summary read aloud. Action items listed, deadlines assigned. The recorder clicked off. In the hallway, Margaret turned on me. You planned this. The records did, I said. You let them tear me apart. They organized, I said. Brian stepped between us. Can we not do this here? Margaret shook him off. You always hide behind systems, she said to me. You think paper tells the truth. It remembers, I said. She laughed again, louder this time. You think this makes you right. I think it makes it accurate. Her phone rang. She ignored it. At the records office, a clerk updated a file while we waited. Keys tapped, a stamp pressed down with a dull thud. "Access updated," the clerk said. "Effective today." Margaret's shoulders sagged, then stiffened. "You'll regret this," she said. The clerk slid a receipt across. "Keep this for your files," she said, smiling the way people do when nothing personal is allowed. Outside, Brian spoke low. "She's going to fight." "That's her choice," I said. "She'll tell everyone you did this to her." "They can read," I said. He shook his head. "You never think about the fallout." "I think about balances," I said. Margaret called that night, voice sharp. "They've restricted me," she said. "I can't make changes without you." "That's what the email said," I said. "You're enjoying this." "No," I said. "I'm adjusting." She switched to tears without warning. "I trusted you." "You trusted the account," I said. Her breathing slowed, then hardened. "This isn't over." "I know," I said. The line went dead. An hour later, an automated message arrived. "Your access has been updated. If you have questions, contact administration." The tone stayed polite. At the table, I placed the phone beside the folder labeled Financial Records. The pages stayed in order. Dates did not move. The teller at the credit union asked for identification, then asked again to confirm the spelling. Her screen reflected a list that had grown longer over the years. "You want to consolidate these?" she said. "Yes." "All of them?" "Yes." She nodded, not curious, just thorough. Keys clicked. A form slid across the counter. Another followed. "These changes will take effect today," she said. "Future access will be limited to the account holder unless otherwise authorized." "That's fine." She paused. "You're the only name listed." "I know." A stamp landed with a dull sound. The receipt printed, slow and deliberate, as if it wanted to be noticed. Outside, my phone buzzed. Brian's name appeared, then disappeared. No message followed. At the hospital office later, the administrator reviewed the updated file. He didn't rush. "Financial authority confirmed," he said. "Primary contact updated." He checked a box. "Decision routing will reflect this going forward." "Thank you." He looked up. "This simplifies things." "It does," I said. He smiled faintly. "Systems prefer clarity." In the hallway, Denise waited with a folder tucked under her arm. She glanced at the clock, then at me. "Looks official," she said. "It is now." She handed me a copy. "Access notes," she said. "Nothing dramatic. Those are my favorite kind." She nodded. "People usually fight these changes." "They tried." She didn't ask who. "Once the system updates," she said, "stories get harder to maintain." "That's efficient." She smiled, brief. At lunch, a message arrived from an aunt. "We don't know where to stand anymore." Another followed from a cousin. "Your mother says you've shut her out." I didn't answer either. Brian called later, voice tight. "They won't talk to me," he said. "Who?" "The hospital, the bank. Everyone keeps redirecting." "That's the update," I said. "You cut me out." "You were never in," I said. He exhaled. "She's telling people you took over." "They can read the notices." "You don't care how this looks." "I care how it works." A pause. "She says you're punishing her." I adjusted access. "That's not how it feels to her." "Feelings don't authorize payments." He laughed, sharp. "You always talk like a policy." "Policies are consistent." Silence followed. Then the line went dead. That afternoon, a voicemail from Margaret arrived. She sounded composed, which meant she was planning something. "They're treating me like a visitor," she said. "I have to ask permission now." "That's the process," I said. "You think this makes you powerful. It makes things accurate." She scoffed. "Everyone knows I sacrificed everything." "They know the dates," I said. Her tone changed. "You think people believe paperwork over a mother?" "They believe receipts," I said. She hung up without another word. At work, the day moved forward without commentary. A coworker asked about coverage changes. Another mentioned a billing delay. No one asked about my family. An automated email arrived mid-afternoon. Confirmation. Financial authority updated. Effective immediately. The message ended with a survey link. Across town, Margaret met with relatives who nodded sympathetically. She spoke in long sentences, heavy with pauses. No one interrupted, but no one volunteered to call on her behalf either. Later, a text came from Brian. They told me to stop calling. I didn't reply. At the credit union, the final confirmation printed. The teller handed it over. "All set," she said. "Anything else today?" "No." She smiled. "Have a good afternoon." The phrase carried no weight. That was the point. In the parking lot, Denise crossed paths with me again. "Looks like the dust is settling," she said. "Looks like it," I said. She adjusted the folder under her arm. "Systems don't hold grudges," she said. "They just remember." "That helps." She nodded once and walked off. That evening, my phone stayed still. No calls, no messages. The absence felt unfamiliar, but workable. At home, I placed the new documents into the folder and slid it onto the shelf. The label faced outward. Nothing fancy. Across the city, Margaret drafted another version of the story. This one framed her as cautious, misunderstood. She sent it to a group chat. Responses came back slower this time, shorter, neutral. Brian didn't reply at all. The clerk at the hospital asked for a date of birth, then asked again to confirm the spelling of the last name. Her fingers moved with practiced certainty. A checkbox filled, another line updated. "Final review," she said, "nothing pending." She slid the paper across for acknowledgement. The language stayed neutral. Roles listed, access noted. A signature line waited. Margaret sat 2 chairs away, hands folded, gaze fixed on the floor. No objections came, no questions followed. The form traveled back across the desk. "Completed," the clerk said. "You'll receive confirmation shortly." An email arrived before we reached the elevator. Subject: Record update confirmation. Body: Your information has been updated successfully. Closing line: Thank you for your continued cooperation. No one thanked anyone in person. In the lobby, Margaret turned toward the exit without speaking. The door opened. She stepped through. The moment passed without ceremony. Brian wasn't there. He hadn't been for weeks. Outside, a nurse asked whether anyone needed directions. No one answered. The sidewalk took care of the rest. At work, the day filled itself. A patient asked about coverage dates. Another needed a referral corrected. The printer jammed once, then behaved. Denise passed by and nodded. "Looks settled," she said. "It's updated," I said. She smiled the kind of smile that means a file has found its place. Later, a message arrived from an aunt. "We've adjusted schedules. Please send updates through email." The wording sounded professional. That was new. Another message followed from Brian. "Let me know if anything changes." Nothing had. Margaret didn't call. A short email came instead, forwarded from an address I didn't recognize. "Please direct future questions to my attorney. Medical matters only." No greeting, no signature. At the credit union, the teller recognized me. "Back again?" she asked. "Yes." She pulled up the screen. "New account?" "Yes." "Individual or joint?" "Individual." She nodded and slid a form forward. "This one will be under your name only." "That works." She tapped, printed, then stamped. The stamp landed with a soft thud, like punctuation. "Would you like online access?" "Yes." She smiled. "Already active." The confirmation printed with a date and time. The balance started at 0. It looked honest. At home, I placed the folder on the shelf beside the others. Financial records faced outward. The new account paperwork slipped behind it. Thinner, lighter. Dinner took 10 minutes. Dishes followed. The phone stayed still. An automated message arrived near dusk. "Your preferences have been saved. We appreciate your attention to detail." The phrasing felt almost personal. It wasn't. Across town, Margaret filled out forms at her table. The pen paused often. Boxes asked for initials instead of explanations. She signed where required and stopped where she couldn't. The instructions didn't argue back. Family messages slowed. When they came, they stayed factual. Appointment moved. Paperwork received. Please confirm availability. No one asked how anyone felt. At the hospital a week later, a clerk waved as I passed. "All set," she said. "You're listed." "Thanks," she added almost cheerfully. "The system likes consistency." That afternoon, Brian left a voicemail. His voice sounded careful. "They told me to check the portal," he said. "Everything routes to you now." "That's the update," I said when I returned the call. A pause. "She's upset." "I know." "You don't want to talk to her?" "I talk through forms." He laughed once, short. "You always were like that." "Bill's trained me." Silence followed. The call ended without friction. On a Friday, another email arrived. Subject: confirmation complete. Body: no further action required at this time. Closing line: we wish you continued success. Success wasn't defined. That helped. At the end of the shift, the hallway cleared. Lights dimmed on schedule. I walked out without checking my phone. In the parking lot, a woman struggled with a cart. Someone helped. The moment passed. Ordinary things continued to happen. At home, the new account notification chimed. The balance remained unchanged. A good place to start. Margaret sent one last message that night. "Please confirm receipt of documents." I replied with a single word: confirmed. No reply came back. The following morning, I went to work. The desk looked the same. The screen loaded as usual. Tasks lined up. Nothing dramatic followed. At lunch, Denise sat across with a sandwich. "Peace tends to look boring," she said. "That's fine," I said. She nodded. "Most systems aim for that." When the day ended, I left the building and headed toward the car. The phone stayed in my pocket. No victory announced itself. No apology arrived. Control had returned without fanfare. Life kept its pace.